Hey, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel, and as you've guessed from this image on the screen, I'm going to be talking about the teaser trailer, or official trailer, for Netflix's new Masters of the Universe show. There's actually two shows coming to Netflix, and this is the more adult collector-oriented show, whereas there's going to be a CGI show coming out for kids later this year. Now, I wasn't going to do a review of the trailer, because honestly, there's a ton of YouTube videos already on it with people dissecting every millisecond of the trailer, which is awesome, and I enjoy those as well. But I've gotten quite a few requests, okay, maybe a couple hundred requests, if not more, on the comment section asking my opinion on the trailer, and honestly, I see that as very flattering because, hey, it's flattering to be asked your opinion. So I'll go ahead and do a video talking about the trailer and my thoughts on it, which is what you're watching right now. All right, so for starters, my favorite version of MOTU, of the He-Man story, is the 2000X series by Mike Young Productions and Mattel in kind of 2000 to 2002, depending on where you lived in the world and where it aired. This was also a show that had a toy line that, again, was very successful with adult collectors, not so much kids. But because I love the show so much, it was deliberate that in classics we use the bios to kind of continue the story of 2000X with some of the notes that were left behind. The new show is more, it's a continuation of Filmation, and it's being led by Kevin Smith, who has been around pop culture for many, many years, and he is a noted filmmaker, making everything from comedies to social commentary to religious commentary films. I was a fan of Kevin Smith actually very early on when Clerks came out. I was in high school and, seeing a movie where people talked about Star Wars the way we did was cool. Well, the coolest thing I think Kevin Smith has ever done has been the animated Clerks series, which if you haven't seen it, you are really missing out.
Let me see that. Bring this quick stop to me.
Sir, it's a store.
Bring it!
How about the two kids who run it instead?
All right. For now.
So it was basically the continuing story of Randall Dante, and the crowd that lived in Red Bank, New Jersey. And, focus on lots of things like whether or not the Grimace could carry a disease, or putting George Lucas on trial for making episode 1. And, to even poke fun at animation industry. So I love Kevin Smith animation, and a lot of people have been upset that he's made a few flubs recently talking about the history of He-Man, mentioning like the years incorrectly when Filmation was made. Well, honestly, we all make these kind of mistakes. I mean, I pointed out that Lando Calrissian, the general figure from Kenner, came with a stick accessory like Akbar, when he actually comes with a gun, which you can clearly see. So we all make mistakes, especially when put on the spot. So I don't really hold him, too hard to this because, you're going to nitpick. So let's get to the trailer. The first thing that kind of caught my attention was Man-at-Arms slugging Trapjaw in the face. And while I thought this was cool, and as it, continued throughout the trailer, you saw more characters, and Tila definitely didn't miss leg day. And they're making a lot of physical contact, especially for an animated series. The reason this caught my attention is because in the original series, which this is meant to be a sequel to, they weren't allowed to make physical contact with the actual, skin to skin. I mean, He-Man could bend Trapjaw's robotic arm, but that was about it as far as causing pain to someone. And his sword could only be used for defense, never for attack. He couldn't use it to actually, cut someone or thrust someone. It was usually relied on as he was strength involved pushing things or picking things up or grabbing giant boulders. You weren't allowed because of FCC standards to actually make physical contact between two characters. So seeing Man-at-Arms ramming Trapjaw in the face right away caught my attention. It's also really cool to see how many vehicles are popping up. I'm sure this has been said on many of the other reviews of the trailer. Everything from Rotons to Land Sharks. He-Man rides in on a Stridor horse, or maybe it is the Stridor horse. I always think of them as kind of a fleet of Stridors, like you can have a fleet of Rotons, but I know in Filmation there was only one Stridor, so maybe that's, who he's riding on. Either way, it's really great to see screen time with so many vehicles and characters that either had limited screen time in Filmation or didn't show up at all. I mean, heck, even Lieutenant Spector shows up. Maybe we'll actually get to see him turn into Mighty Spector. Okay, that's wishful thinking. I don't think that's going to happen at all. But hey, anything can happen. It's a long way to Delhi. And then, of course, characters who have never shown up in animation before, like Clamp Champ, finally get their animation debut. So, again, really cool. And blink if you miss them, there's Skelecons in there from the Ladybird book. So they clearly are paying homage to a lot of Masters of the Universe history. And, is that Faker behind the Sorceress there? If you, again, blink and you miss it. There's a lot of Easter eggs going on. Is that the unnamed one? Is that Gorpo? Or is that just Orko being really angry? Either way, it's cool to see a Trollan unleashing all of her power and not just goofing off. One of the issues that's come up is He-Man's new symbol, the H symbol. Well, it's an existing symbol, but it replaces the cross symbol that he had. And I get from a political correct point of view, but the Iron Cross is not just a, Germany World War II symbol. It goes back way before that. And it's a symbol of bravery and strength. And, I get why they wanted to change it, but I don't know. If it's supposed to be a sequel to Filmation, maybe I would have fought for that if I was on the other side of the camera, but maybe it wasn't even an issue. Overall, I do find the series to look a lot more like 2000X than Filmation. Obviously, we're living in a world where animation has gone, steps above where it was in the early 80s, but looking at it, I could almost mistake some of the screen grabs for shots from the 2000X series, as well as, the way they fight, the way they twirl their weapons, that kind of thing. It's interesting to note that the 2000X series was originally conceived as a sequel to Filmation, with He-Man's sword being replaced by an electronic sword because Skeletor had stolen both halves. This was how the Four Horsemen envisioned it and why the toys were released the way they were. But instead, the decision was made to reboot the brand for 2000X, and that concept was thrown out, and the story was just a retelling of Filmation as opposed to a sequel. So now that we have the Netflix show, which is a sequel, it's kind of interesting how the brand is sort of going in circles, and I'd really like to know where it's going to stop and what is going to happen. And I think that's a good way to sort of conclude what to expect, because the clock is ticking on the brand. It's about to return to Universal, and I think that's why we're seeing so much He-Man product and content, because Mattel wants to crank out as much as they can before they lose rights. So what do I think we're going to see? I think we're going to see a ridiculous amount of Easter eggs for the fans, like a ridiculous amount, like pause every screen to see what you can see. And I'm sure Screen Crush will do a great video on that. And I think we're going to see the brand take a very different direction within the series, the two-parter. I think it's going to start off very traditional with Filmation, but I think by the end it's going to be something very different. And I think it's kind of important to go into that with those type of expectations, so that you're not disappointed when it is different. I'm expecting by the end of the show, the two-parter, to be in a very different place and for it to look less like Filmation than where it will start. I think that's going to be kind of the journey. It'll start with a Filmation sequel. So prepare for the unexpected. I'm not saying disaster. This image isn't meant to say it's going to be disaster. I'm just saying I think we're going to be getting a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of very unexpected story. And then lastly, I should probably also comment on the use of the theme music, We Need a Hero. Makes sense that they would want to, remind us of the 80s and bring us back to that time period, since, again, it's meant to be a sequel. But I gotta tell you, every time I hear this song, all I do is think of Johnny Five from Short Circuit 2, which, why there are not Johnny Five action figures, and, like come on, NECA, that's totally up your alley. Make it happen. I want a Johnny Five action figure, because we need a hero, a robot hero. All right, well, either way, on with the show. I'll be back when the series actually airs to give some comments, but I hope you enjoyed this review of the trailer. Let me know in your comments below if I missed anything or anything else you want my thoughts on. I'm honored to give it. Thanks so much.